Hey, it's me. And today we're going to learn about famous Viking explorers. Okay, so let's talk about some famous explorers. I was kind of busy yesterday, and I was looking at my phone a lot, which made me realize something. There are a lot of famous explorers. Like if I just went through the alphabet, we could talk about Leif Erikson, Ferdinand Magellan, Marco Polo, Yuri Shevchenko, Thor Heyerdahl. But then I realized something else. These people aren't actually that famous. I mean, their names are well known in certain circles, but in general, they're not household names. Now, when I think about famous explorers, I think about these guys. They're not all Vikings, but they do fit the bill. So let's talk about them. Okay, so let's start off with Ragnar Lothbrok. He was a legendary Viking warrior and king. According to Norse legend, he was the king of the Danish region of Ringerike from around 845 to 865 AD. During his reign, he led many successful raids into England, France, and even the Byzantine Empire. Now, despite the fact that he's called Ragnar Lothbrok, his nickname wasn't actually Lothbrok. Lothbrok was actually the name given to his horse because of its light-colored sides. But when Ragnar took up arms, he became known as Ragnar the Fighter or Ragnar the Powerful. Eventually, though, his enemies started calling him Ragnar Lodbrog because they thought it was his real name. Now, whether or not this guy really existed is debatable, but the stories about his exploits were written down and popularized by 13th century Icelandic historian Snorri Sturluson. All right, now let's talk about Eric the Red. Eric the Red was an Icelandic explorer and the first European to set foot in Greenland. Now, before we go any further, let me just say that Eric the Red wasn't actually red. In fact, most descriptions of what he looked like are often contradictory or unreliable. The name Eric the Red seems to have come from a mistranslation of the Icelandic word for red-haired. In reality, he probably had an average Viking haircut and an average Viking beard. Maybe he was red-headed. Maybe he was tan. Whatever the case, he certainly wasn't green. Okay, now let's talk about another famous explorer, Bjarni Herjulfsson. Bjarni Herjulfsson was an Icelandic explorer who is credited with being the first European to reach the coast of North America. Now, his journey began in 860 when he and his crew became lost during a voyage from Iceland to Greenland. When they realized they were lost, they sailed west and eventually spotted land. Now, exactly where he landed is debated, but most historians agree it was somewhere in the vicinity of Newfoundland. Unfortunately for Bjarni, his time in North America was pretty short. After catching a seal to eat, his boat got caught in a storm, and he and his crew had to abandon ship. Luckily for Bjarni, another ship passed by, and he was able to stow away on board. He eventually made it back to Iceland and told everyone about his adventures, but no one believed him. So he tried to make the trip again, but this time he left from Norway and again became lost. This time he ended up on the island of Maya, which is now part of the Faroe Islands. Bjarni spent a few years living with the locals, but eventually set sail again and returned to Norway. Okay, now let's talk about the last famous explorer, Gunnbjorn Ulfsson. Not much is known about Gunnbjorn's early life, but we do know that he left Norway in the late 9th century with 2 ships and a crew of about 20 men. His goal was to find new lands to explore and raid. After sailing west, he came across an island which he named Thule. This is likely the same island that Bjarni Herjulfsson landed on during his second voyage. Gunnbjorn and his crew stayed in Thule for a while, trading with the local population and exploring the surrounding area. Eventually, though, they had to leave. And on their way back to Norway, they were attacked by Irish monks. Now, unlike the other Vikings in this video, Gunnbjorn was actually killed in this battle. But his sacrifice was not in vain. One of his crew members survived and returned to Norway with tales of Gunnbjorn's bravery. Over time, these stories grew, and Gunnbjorn became known as a legendary Viking explorer. All right, well, that wraps up this episode. If you want to see more videos like this, leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.